DW Africa Link.
Is Zambia conducting backdoor recruitment into the police service? In the past few weeks, the Zambian government has been at the center of a recruitment controversy where about 4,000 new personnel have been added to the police force.
This current system we are using is not different from other institutions as I indicated, like the Ministry of Health, like the Ministry of Education. I am aware of the concerns that members of the public are raising.
The problem? Critics say the recruitment did not follow proper procedure. The opposition has accused the government of trying to gain advantage ahead of the August 2026 elections. But the government says this is an internal exercise only intended to fill vacancies in the police force. So, where lies the truth? And why has the recruitment been treated with suspicion? That's what's coming up today on Africa Link. I am Ajuatin Kramadomna, and you're welcome to Africa Link, the podcast connecting you to the stories that matter.
Africa Link, every weekday here on DW.
We should have a transparent process where there should be public advertisement so that we also get rid of unnecessary innuendos where people are suspecting, even things that are not supposed to be there. So I think there's no harm in advertising, and so that everybody has an equal shot.
If you read the budget from last year, this recruitment was not included. So where is the money coming from? For me, and on behalf of Zambia Must Prosper, and I think on behalf of my fellow opposition leaders, this is a desperate act to hoodwink the youths of Zambia that the UPND government is employing people. It is selective employment for UPND cadres.
Welcome to the show. You just heard some Zambians who are displeased with a decision by the Zambian police force to recruit new officers. Now, members of the opposition and some civil society groups, including the Zambian Council of Churches, are demanding transparency and adherence to established public service procedures. Their worry is that these 4,000 recruitments have been made without publicly advertising the positions to allow for merit-based processes. However, the police insist no law was broken. President Hakainde Hichilema told reporters his government is discussing the situation with hopes of addressing the concerns of the public.
I have heard the issues about police recruitment. We are addressing that issue right now. That's our job. That's why you put us in these offices.
So if this is simply a procedural oversight, what steps can be taken to restore public confidence? And if it's not, who ultimately bears responsibility for this scandal? For this discussion, we have been joined by Kelly Skaunda. He is a media and public policy consultant. We also have DW's Glory Mushenge joining us from Lusaka. Welcome, both of you. Kelly, is there an established procedure for recruitment into the Zambian police force?
There is an established process of being recruited into the police service. One is that there are positions that open up, and they're available when they open up on the website. But the institution that does the recruitment is the Zambia Police Commission, and it does advertise positions. But basically, the recruitment is at two primary entry levels. The first one is at constable level. And at constable level, the qualifications are that you're supposed to have a grade 12 certificate with 5 credits. With one of those passes must be in English, at least 14 points. That is the level at which hundreds of thousands of people are annually recruited. The second level at which people get into the police service is at inspector level. At inspector level, you need to have either a diploma or a degree from a recognized institution. There is another level at which people are recruited into the police service. That is a specialized level. The specialized level is, where people are lawyers or they are doctors, they are and they're accountants. The numbers at that level are normally, not that much. Even at the level of inspector, the numbers are not that much. The numbers are normally larger at a level of constable. That is the level at which the recruitments in Zambia this year are taking place, and that's where the discussion, arises.
What is different? Why did the police service decide to, recruit these people without going through the right processes?
You see, there was, a letter that was circulated, and some people leaked a letter that came from the secretariat to the ruling party, allegedly written by the Secretary General to party structures across the country, urging them to submit a certain number of party cadres or party supporters for recruitment in the police service. So at some point that letter was denied, but then later the police came out and said, the recruitment which was going on was intended to fill up, some positions that were needed. But then when the numbers were announced between 3,000 to 4,000, it raised eyebrows that if you are simply filling up some positions, there is no way you'd recruit such a large number of people, because that large number of people, the established practice is that you are advertised because you want to give every Zambian an opportunity.
From what I understand, one, there is no legal restriction on the police service on how they should recruit people, but there are established laid down procedures that they have followed over the years. Again, I am gleaning from what you have said that the recruitment processes, if it is for large numbers of candidates, must be merit-based so that every Zambian who qualifies under the requirements can apply. Is that what the case is? I just want us to establish these things before we proceed.
Yes, according to, there's no law that says that the police cannot recruit behind the scenes. What is established, which is even available on the website of the Zambia Police Service Commission, is that when the positions are available, you can access them on the website, and they will indicate which positions are available. That is the process which is there that you can access on the website. But what the practice has been over the years, not just with this government, is that there are annualized recruitments in the police service. There are numbers that are even announced oftentimes in parliament that this year the Zambia police will be recruiting so many. The Zambian government under the Ministry of Education will be recruiting so many. So all those numbers are known, and the processes are advertised and they're accessible on the website. So that is the established process. It's not as if there's a law. It's not as if there's a law that says that you can't recruit, behind the scenes. There's no law that says you can't do that. But when something has been established as a process, and when you depart from that process, the public has the right to know, why have you departed from this process?
Very well. Thank you so much for clarifying the issues for us. And I'm going to come back to you shortly on why this is a problem. But Glory, let me bring you in at this moment. What has the public been saying about this, Glory?
It goes without saying that this has sparked intense public debate. And obviously it's regarding transparency, as Kelly is saying, with some citizens questioning the criteria used for selection, leading to allegations of nepotism and favoritism. So critics feel this is meant to create employment for those near the corridors of power, in this case, like party cadres, hence the secrecy. And this is despite the police service being funded by taxpayers. And then you have the opposition as well taking this all the way. And you have certain leaders such as Zambia Must Prosper's Kelvin Fubiwala. You will I think, be able to hear in one of the clips.
On behalf of Zambia Must Prosper, and I think on behalf of my fellow opposition leaders, this is a desperate act to hoodwink the youths of Zambia that the UPND government is employing people.
And for him, it's also about what timing is this. It's nearing election time. We have elections in less than 4 months, and he thinks it's bad timing. So recruitments of this nature, according to him, are meant to fix the opposition. So those are some of the sentiments. There's also the other concern, which is about funding. The argument is that there were no clear outlined, the budget for this. There hasn't been a budget for this. They were not clearly outlined in previous budgets, these types of recruitments, because it's not just the police. There are other recruitments in health, for instance. So that's what the issue is.
Is this a trend that you have seen, that during election years, governments tend to recruit people without, passing through the right procedures? Glory.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so all I can say is that this has happened before in previous governments, where people have been recruited without public advertising. But that does not negate the fact that it goes against acceptable norms. And most of the time, of course, governments, it's an African thing, I think, who tend to want to come out good, like in order to allure the voters. But in this case, with this government, the UPND, they came to power on the premises that they would actually do things differently. And so when they seem to deviate from what they promised, it becomes a bigger problem. And also in this case, perhaps what makes it appear more grave is, unusual, is the quantity involved. We are talking about 3,000 to 4,000 recruits. This is too big, and one would argue that it's too large a number to be recruited privately.
Right. Before I go to Kelly, there's one more question for you, Glory. We have seen the Minister of Home Affairs, talk about the fact that this was meant to sort of fill positions that have been created by retirement, resignations, attrition. So essentially, it's an internal, recruitment of sorts. Has this explanation gone down well with CSOs or even members of the public who are criticizing the government?
They are saying it's an internal recruitment to fill up positions of those that have retired, died, maybe resigned. And so they didn't need to bring it out in the public. But the argument is the number. The number is too huge to be filled in internally, and also to be done without advertising publicly. So that's what the issue is. It's transparency, most importantly.
So let me come to you, Kelly. For you, why is this a problem?
Practices tend to become public policy. And even if public policy is not supported by legislation, the fact that it's been adopted by government as a practice, it becomes a policy. And if it becomes public policy, then members of the public, assume the right that policy is going to be consistent. So recruitment via advertisements, especially when there are large numbers, has become established public policy. It's no longer just a mere practice. So for this reason, when the recruitments depart from established policy, it becomes naturally a problem. And members of the public, therefore, have got the right to demand the answers as to why you've departed from established policy.
I was asking Glory a question. Let me just ask you as well. The explanation that have been given by the government that this is an internal process, and so we do not necessarily require, advertising. And does it hold up? Does it make sense to you?
No, it doesn't. The reason why it doesn't is that just because you have offered an explanation does not necessarily mean that it will be satisfactory. When there is inconsistency, members of the public become suspicious. And also remember that there was a letter that circulated in the name of the party chief of the ruling party, writing letters to party supporters to submit names because the police were recruiting between 3,000 and 4,000. Now, that letter was not denied and dismissed. Instead, what the police said initially was to deny that such a process was happening. But then when there was a second explanation that they were just filling up positions of people that retired or that were sick or that were fired, and then government comes up with another explanation, the very fact that there were 2-3 different explanations was in itself enough to raise the suspicion of the Zambian people that you were doing this for different reasons. Now, people are speculating, and rightly so, that, because it's an election period, so you want to recruit so many numbers of police officers to affect the outcome of the election in favor of the ruling party. And others are speculating, government is doing this because it is seeking to favor, its own members of the party. And if you are going to favor your own members of the party, then you are discriminating on the basis of political affiliation or association. And for that reason, members of the public have got the right to complain.
So complain you must, but after complaining, then what? We have established a problem. We have established that people are complaining, and rightly so. But then what? Should the government halt this process and begin it all over again? What really should happen?
I think we need to go back to established policy. Established policy is that this arrangement that has been happening behind the scenes must be halted, and that government advertises that there are so many positions, and they explain what these positions are in the police. If it's at constable level, they indicate at constable level so many numbers, and they indicate what the qualifications are. But we know the qualifications at constable level. If you are recruiting, at inspector level, they must say so. If they are also, recruiting at specialized level, they must also indicate that. So this process must stop, so that then the government goes back to that policy. If it doesn't stop, then the Zambian people have got the right to go to court and argue that from an administrative point of view, there's a policy that has been established. And if government wants to recruit differently, what are the reasons? And are those reasons compatible with public interest?
Right. Glory, are we seeing threats from the CSOs or from the opposition that they're going to take this matter up, maybe in court, if the government does not reverse this?
Yeah. So some opposition members, political parties have threatened to go to court so they can seek judicial review and establish whether this was done on merit. The civil society, on the other hand, the church included and other stakeholders, are just pressurizing government and demanding that they cancel this recruitment process for lack of transparency and ask them to restart the process, this time following the proper standards, which is advertising in public media and setting a proper criteria so that, we know that the process is being, that recruits are being selected on merits. Failure to do that, it risks undermining meritocracy. So that's all that's going on. It's the threat from opposition and the demands from civil society.
Is there an ultimatum tied to these demands so that if in 2 weeks or in a week, if government does not do this, we are going to demonstrate? What is it sounding like?
I don't think, though, that anybody at this point in Zambia could actually put up such a threat as to demonstrate, because demonstrations are not easily allowed here. Most people that attempt to go out, no matter how peaceful the demonstration is, as long as it speaks against what the government is doing, do not actually succeed. They never get permits. And if they dare the government and go ahead, they get to face the law. So I don't think that's even in question, but in the question, but they just keep talking and, presenting these demands.
Have you spoken to young people who wanted to be recruited, who were looking forward to the exercise, but were disappointed?
Most of the young people are openly stating it online, on the ground, that they expect everything to be done publicly. And obviously, people are looking for work, whether in police or in other sectors, because unemployment levels are still high. And all they ask is that the government does it fairly. And that's one of the things that the people are asking for. Who are these people? Where did you get them from? What was the criteria? But the only thing that I know for sure, because it's in public domain and it's been discussed a lot, is just about, how, because the memo came out and it showed that they were being instructed to report for training with a variety of items, including academic documents, national identity cards, and personal care items. The rest of the information is not there. Everything that people are saying is coming from the memo, the leaked memo.
Kellis, let me come back to you for your final comment. If the government refuses to rescind its decision, I mean, I've heard President Hakainde Hichilema say that they are looking into these concerns, or they are addressing it. If that addressing does not end up with a reversal of this exercise, what will it mean for the integrity of the police force, even for democracy or ensuring participation in governance?
Well, what would actually mean here is that the government of President Hichilema doesn't live what it preaches. This is a government that came on the platform of no corruption, transparency, and accountability. So what the Zambian people are simply doing is to use this opportunity to test their genuineness, if this government is truly committed to principles of transparency and accountability. And like Gloria has indicated, the problem we have in Zambia is that it's in practice to protest is illegal, and yet by law it is legal. In ordinary, democratic, political systems, the Zambian people would have demonstrated, would have been demonstrating their disapproval with of this in the streets. But that is not the case in Zambia. So what will simply happen is that if government decides to go ahead without addressing this issue, it is going to once again confirm that this government doesn't actually mean what it says. And this is an election period. Behaviors of this kind can actually prove very costly to ruling parties.
What should be done in the spirit of promoting transparency, even if not for this administration, for future administrations as well? What example, should they leave in order to ensure that the decisions they are making, is not perceived as benefiting only a select few, but beneficial to the entire country?
I think let it be established policy that, above a certain threshold, the recruitment in government will always be a public one. That is because, you want to take away the possibility that someone is going to politically cash in on an opportunity like this. Let it be established policy. And if need be, let this policy be supported by law. That should simply say that beyond a certain threshold, all recruitments are going to be public recruitments.
You just heard Kellis Kaunda. He's a media and public policy consultant. You also heard DW's Glory Bushengi reporting to us from Lusaka. Thank you, both of you.
Thank you for having me.
The debate around police recruitment in Zambia goes beyond the numbers. It raises hard questions about transparency, public trust, and accountability in the government's law enforcement mechanisms, especially as Zambia prepares for its elections in August. And while that's where we end the show today, rest assured, we at Africa Link will keep you up to speed with the unfolding controversy. Share your thoughts on this discussion with us on our Facebook and TikTok pages at DW Africa. Listen to us on Spotify or wherever you get your podcast. And don't forget to subscribe to our DW Africa YouTube channel so you never miss an episode. This show was co-produced and edited by Kai Neve. I am Ajua Tinkrama Domina. Bye for now.
DW, made for minds.